Announcing the arrival of Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Noripah Kamso, Chairman of Bank Rakyat, and Mr. Kavilash Chowla, Managing Director of Baton Global. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let us please stand up for the national anthem Negaraku and Maju Bersamamu Bank Rakyat.
Seiring sepadu memberi khidmat bermutu, amanah cekap serta mesra, tuju kemajuan pesat. Warga kerja cemerlang, berdasarkan ilmu dan nilai, serahkan amalan yang terus dengan teknologi moden. Mari kita tuju ke harapan dari bank korporasi yang unggul, berasaskan perbankan Islam untuk agama bangsa dan negara. Bergeraklah dengan iltizam, capai matlamat dan visi, jayakan anggota dan pelanggan, maju bersama bank rakyat, maju bersama bank rakyat, maju bersama bank rakyat.
Thank you. Please be seated. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. Mr. Kavilash Chowla, Managing Director of Baton Global, and Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Noripah Kamso, Chairman of Bank Rakyat, the Board of Directors of Bank Rakyat, the Sharia Committee of Bank Rakyat, the Board of Trustees of Yayasan Bank Rakyat, the Management Committee, ladies and gentlemen. We are delighted for the opportunity today to gather and be enlightened by our first Sustainable Talk series titled Sustainability for Business Growth. We would also like to extend our utmost gratitude to our speaker, Mr. Kavilash Chowla, for his time to be here today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to begin, let us grace today's talk with the recital of Dua by Ustaz Basri Abdul Rashid.
Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Hamdan yuwafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم أحيينا بالإيمان وأمتنا بالإيمان واحشرنا بالإيمان وأدخلنا الجنة مع الإيمان. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما. Ya Allah, bless this event. Make this event meet the success and excellence for us in the work and hereafter. Allahumma inna nas'aluka mujibati rahmatik wa azaima maghfiratik wassalamata min kulli ithm wal ghanimata min kulli bir wal fawza bil jannati wal najata minan nar. اللهم عافنا من كل بلاء الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة وشر الدنيا وشر الآخرة. غفر الله لنا يا كريم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Ustaz. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Datuk Noripah Kamso, Chairman of Bank Rakyat, to deliver her opening speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Selamat tengah hari. Good afternoon, Board of Directors, Management and all the staff of Bank Rakyat. And of course, our Honourable Speaker, Mr. Kavilash Chowla. Sustainable development is a topic which is very close to my heart and something which everyone can work together to make our country a better place, not only for ourselves, but also for the next generation. What is the identity of Bank Rakyat? An identity is usually for a cause. We would want to capture a space which has not been championed by any other bank in the country. To be future ready and considering that our vision is to be serving community, nation and planet, we want to champion sustainability. We want to champion Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations, the environment, the social, the governance, the climate change, the human rights, the labor rights, which is actually the basic element of Sharia values, Maqasid al-Sharia. We want our stakeholders to identify us as the sustainable bank. This will require you to integrate sustainability into the bank's business strategies. For example, your credit assessment will have to validate that the business you're lending to is both sustainable compliant and also Sharia compliant. By being identified as the sustainable bank, we are committed to protect the three Ps, namely people, planet, and progress. Please note, when we talk about progress here, it doesn't mean just profit. It also means social development and shared prosperity. You might recall we collaborated with United Nations in June this year, where we launched United Nations, who actually launched Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDG, in 2012. Are you managing the slide? Can you manage the slide? Okay. So with that collaboration, we are aligned to United Nations Social Development Goals, with the underlying aim of contributing to a better society, minimizing environmental harm, and delivering sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to split the next 10 minutes into 3 topics. Number 1, what is sustainability? Number 2, the bank and your role. And number 3, moving forward. So what is sustainability? Bahasa Melayunya apa? Kelestarian. Very good. Now, how many of you all here are 50 years and above? I am 50 years and above. Yang perempuan semua tak nak mengaku. Yang laki-laki banyak angkat tangan. Ada angkat 2 tangan semua. So what was the population when you were born? 50 or 60 years ago. In Malaysia, what was the population? And in the world, what was the population? Jawablah. Tak ingat. When I was in the primary school, in my geography class, I remember the population of Malaysia was 16 million, 16 juta. And now, it is, berapa? 32 million population. What about the world population? The world population today is 7 billion, and is soon going to be 10 billion worldwide. What does this mean from standpoint of sustainability? From standpoint of kelestarian? You will agree with me that this whole dunia, planet, this earth has got limited resources, correct? Betul? So where are these 10 billion population going to stay? What are they going to eat? Will the ecological landscape in this planet be livable enough for these 10 billion people to stay? Masa tu saya pun dah tak ada lah kat dunia ni kan. So while the increase in population is the engine that drives steady economy, this has resulted in environmental effects to the extent the risk of destroying global ecosystem that our basis of existence has been partially destroyed for the next generation. I just want to share with you an experience or 2 experiences when I was in Taiwan in June. And I was there with Nizam Sani and Nizam Abu Sama, because we got a global award on sustainability. I decided to stay in, nowadays as I go for my international travel, I stay in green hotels. I don't stay in the normal hotel. And in this green hotel, you don't have plastic bottles in your room anymore. I have to go out to the water dispenser to get my drink. I'm quite happy to do that. And green hotel means everything is sustainable. And what was interesting in this hotel, they don't use plastic bottles to drink, but they use plastic bottle as an art. So I want to just share with you a video which I actually personally took with my mobile, which shows the bottles that was used as art. Is it there?
This is
Honey?
Green Hotel. This is a game.
It's created into a game.
Bottles.
And these are all plastic bottles. Can you see the plastic
This is
bottles?
how the game is going to be. Start. Type my name. NORIPAH. Press this. I choose balloon. I press the color, and the balloon goes up. See? No. Re. Pa. Yahoo! Those are plastic bottles there. 26,000 of the plastic bottles.
So those are plastic bottles. Did you realize? I know you're entertained by how I play the game, but the message here is to demonstrate to you that plastic bottles need not have to be thrown in the dustbin. From creative thinking, you're able to actually use the plastic bottle as an art, as a game, as a toy, as something that keep yourself busy. And this is what the Green Hotel has actually done to 26,000 empty plastic bottles, which was actually placed on the wall up to 9th floor, and you use it to play whatever games you want. That's how brilliant the Taiwanese are. But my second experience is a lot more critical thinking from standpoint of sustainability. A number of you would have experienced this when you go to Japan, but I didn't expect it to be happening in Taiwan. So when you actually leave the airport and you have a plastic bottle of water, right? At the security checkpoint where you put your bag, boleh ke tak boleh bawa plastic bottle tu? Kenapa tak boleh? Because of the bottle or because of the water? Because of the water. Tapi kalau di Malaysia and other parts of the world, they provide you a dustbin, what do you do with the plastic bottle? You throw the bottle and the water away. But the people in Taiwan said, here is a sink, you just throw the water on the sink. And please, I don't need your plastic bottle. Take your plastic bottle with you, put into your bag, throw it in your country. Don't throw it in my country. And I thought that was actually the end. I said, okay, I'll take it back to my country and throw it in my country. But through their critical thinking and based on also sustainability, they were saying every passenger brings water in the bottle because they want to drink the water, correct? So when we actually reach our waiting lounge, and I was like surprised, people was queuing up. And they were actually queuing up in a water dispenser, 2 water dispenser, at the waiting lounge, filling in their plastic bottle. Yang kosong tadi tu, faham tak? Jadi, bukan saja dia bawa balik plastic bottle dia juga boleh minum air dalam plastic bottle tu selepas going through the security. So both customers are happy and Taiwan is also happy to get rid of plastic bottle. Customer is also happy to get the drink. Now, all these are actually sustainability initiatives. How many of you here have got small children? Hands up. Mr. Kavilash has got small children. How old is your kid? 5 and 3. Grandchildren? How old is your grandchildren, Tuan Haji Rani? 4 and 2. Are they using disposable diapers? Yes. Mr. Kavilash? No. Are your children using disposable diapers? Yes. Your grandchildren? That's like all got grandchildren. Disposable diapers? So where I'm coming from is this. Disposable diapers, as you know, if you actually dispose and throw it, takes how many years to be biodegradable? How many years to be biodegradable? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years? 500 years to be biodegradable. So if I actually do my math, I've got 3 grandchildren in my house. I use 10 disposable diapers a day, and there is probably 1 million of babies in the whole of this country. So that's 10 million diapers in one day in this country. And you multiply 360, so that is 3.6 billion diapers in a year that you actually throw You taruh 3.6 billion diaper jadi gunung banyak mana? And it takes 500 years to be biodegradable. In fact, if you Google, you'll find out that there is one rubbish area next to Taj Mahal in India. It is higher than the tip of the Taj Mahal, that rubbish area in India. So this has created the whole planet to be not so livable for the next generation especially. It has become hot. And that is why we use the word climate change. For those who are not familiar, definition of climate change means for the last 30 years, the climate has changed 1.5 degrees. 2 degrees. 2 degrees. As it is now, we are already at 1.5. So we are actually at a crisis. We are putting stress to the younger generation. And if you talk about younger generation, I would want to share with you this small girl called Greta Thunberg. She is a Swedish. At 11 years old, she was very depressed. Because why? Because she realized that when she becomes your age, the world is not a good place to stay anymore because people like me, you, and everybody else have destroyed this world for her generation. She was so depressed, at the age of 13, every Friday, she will strike in front of the parliament, the Swedish parliament, and nobody noticed her for 6 months. But now she's 16 years old. She's famous. She's world famous. She talked in World Economic Forum, in Paris, she was in London, she was in Copenhagen. Millions listened to her. About 1.6 million in 133 countries participated in strike with Greta Thunberg. And her strike is actually called Friday for Climate Change. She protests half a day, not going to school, every Friday, once a week. And she started at 11 years old, and she's now 16. So what is sustainability? Selain dari kelestarian tadi itu, what is sustainability? Yes, it is the 3P, which is people, planet, and profit and progress. But it also means the environment. It also means this society, and it also means the governance that comes together with it. It also means the human rights. It also means the labor rights. If we want to follow Islamic, it is Toyeba, it's Maqasid al-Sharia. And I believe the whole understanding of sustainability will be elaborated by our speaker today, Mr. Kavilash. Number 2, Bank Rakyat and your role. Now, it is worth noting that we are the recipient of an international award, the Asia Responsible Enterprise Award, under the Social Empowerment Category Award in Taipei, which I mentioned to you earlier. How do we maintain global recognition and sustainably achieve such international award? So before I proceed on this topic of the bank and your role, let me just check whether the champions and the mentor today have actually implemented BR25. So who has listened to BR25 video today? Angkat tangan. Champion, what happened? And mentor, what happened? Head office? When is head office? Okay. So the branches will listen to it this morning, or have listened to it this morning, but the head office is on Monday. Sorry, the branches will know the information way ahead of you by 5 days. That's not fair, Nizam. And also the 3 champions. So I don't know how the protocol is, but it should have been simultaneous. But I saw hands up just now. So who has started that dialogue with your staff? Did you started your dialogue with the staff? No, Ashikan has started. Anybody has started the dialogue? Nizam has started, and Shukri, and Muzamir, and Shukri, and Shaiful. Azrael, yes. Thank you. So if you have started on the BR25 dialogue, good, but those that have not started, you probably can just look at the screen. The vision of the bank is serving who? The community, the nation, and the planet. So we just talked about planet just now, yeah? We talk about sustainability. And the mission, be a globally recognized catalyst for what? For national development. How? Through a range of financial services rooted in Islamic values, community spirit, and sustainability. So sustainability comes also in social and governance. It's in the community spirit, it's in the Islamic values. And the whole vision is wanting you to embrace sustainability in community, nation, and also the planet. So what is your role? What is your role once you have seen the BR25? Okay, who still use one-time plastic bottle? Angkat tangan. You see the board directors tak ada plastic bottle lah. Takut ke nak angkat tangan? Jangan takut. Berdosa kalau kita tipu. So whether it is at home or whether it's in the office, I don't drink plastic bottle anymore. If people offer me plastic bottle, I just smile and not take it because I don't know where to throw that plastic bottle. So if you look at this picture of bottle in the ocean, the earth doesn't belong to us. The planet doesn't belong to us. It's us who belong to the planet. But what have we done to the planet? So my question is, have you started with the zero plastic trash in your office? Dah buat ke? Thank you, very good. If you have not done so, I will be most disappointed. This is a policy and should be practiced across the bank. If you analyze the BR25, Bank Rakyat 2025 deeply, under vertical 5, it will state there, by the end of 2025, Bank Rakyat will have embodied sustainability into the bank's processes. Sustainability generates economic growth, revenue creation. It gives us a platform to do Islamic and beyond, and give us the opportunity for global recognition, as you actually saw it. Who read my June monthly message on sustainability? Chairman monthly message in June. What is the topic? Very good, sustainability. So what do you do after reading that Chairman monthly message? What do you do? Ambil yang depan lah. Dr. Mok, what do you do? Tak dengar. She got no voice. Tak keluar suara, yeah. Who wants to volunteer what you do when you actually finish reading the monthly chairman message? Kuat sikit. Can you go to the mic? Lari sikit. This is a game changer. And I think it's important to highlight game changers.
Hello, my name is Shima. So, Dato, the first thing that after reading your...
You're from which department, Shima?
Customer service.
Thank you.
Management. After reading your message, the first thing that I tried to do is to get rid of the bottle. But I didn't know where should I put, because normally we bought like in the box, 24 cartons. So we did not know how to change that, because if we use the core way in our pantry, we still use a bottle. So just now we also discussed in our meeting, we need to have an alternative. What should we do and how to do when people come? How should we serve them? That is the little thing that first thing in my mind.
Thank you, Shima. Can we give her a round of applause? So, what Shima has done is being proactive instead of reactive. Is seeing things big instead of seeing things in silo. I probably do not have the question for you today. That question will be answered by Datuk Syed Aziz. But what is important take away from what Shima mentioned, there is actually some soul searching internally. There is actually a thought process of what you will have to do going forward with your plastic bottles. But Dato' Rosman, he has better idea on what to do with that monthly chairman statement. On Thursday, when we had a workshop, and there were 60 champions in that workshop, Dato' Rosman was the moderator. I talked for 1.5 hours under the topic of legacy at risk. A lot of things was mentioned. Sustainability was one of them. Consequence management was the major of it. Ownership as well as accountability is also another major thing. But what Dato' Rosman said, I'll never forget. Dia cakap dalam bahasa Melayu. Dia kata, kalau kamu semua ambillah kertas yang kamu sudah tulis nota-nota Datuk Chairman cakap tadi tu, rendam dalam air 3 hari, minum tiap-tiap hari, kalau tak masuk kepala, tak tahulah, dia kata. Dia suruh rendam dan minum. That's Datuk Rosman. Datuk Rosman is one of our board of directors, and he's here today. So from today onwards, I actually strongly encourage you all to start implementing what is necessary from standpoint of strategies and enablers to protect the planet whilst giving progress to our life. Now, the third topic quickly is moving forward. As an education process for our 5,000 employees, and after the United Nations collaboration, we plan to have a talk on sustainability on a monthly basis. So sustainability strategies can impact positive revenue growth, can be used for art. This can be positive for tourism or technology or even politics. And we will actually be able to see the sustainability impacting revenue growth today. So today, we are listening to the impact of sustainability on revenue growth by an international speaker who has done projects on sustainability. So, lepas ni kalau tulis note, boleh rendam. Lepas tu minum, apa tu Mr. Kavilash cakap, ya. So, today is our first, and we have already identified 3 consecutive speakers. Mr. Stefan Presner from United Nations will be the next speaker for next month. That will be followed by Tan Sri Rainier, former Managing Director of Siemens Germany. He used to run the Malaysian office. And on the 3rd consecutive month will be Mr. Stefan Gambier from European Union. He's an international communication manager and strategist. So going forward, again, we will be employing a sustainability assistant manager to come up with a policy and procedure, and also to ensure our business strategies are in line with our sustainability aspiration. Now, sustainability being a blue ocean. Blue ocean means a new market platform or an identity. We are encouraging all of you to think hard and participate in the forthcoming strategy competition on how sustainability strategies can be used for revenue growth in your business sectors, whether you are from SME or a RANU or credit card or wealth management or corporate banking or even the amenities within the organization. So stay tuned for the competition on Blue Ocean derived from all the verticals on BR25. So these three subtopics are not difficult, as Bank Rakyat has been practicing these universal values under our Islamic banking dimensions. And these universal values are also identified as the elements of us wanting to be the sustainable bank, which is actually a very powerful cause towards the people, the planet, and the progress. Thank you very much. Enjoy the talk.
A little brief background of Mr. Chowla. Prior to spearheading Baton Global, Mr. Chowla has delved into investment banking industry with expertise in financial services, energy, FMCG, and the non-profit organization. His market focus spanned from the Middle East to South and Southeast Asia and right on to the sub-Saharan Africa. He is passionate to serve the community and contributes as a board member to 4 organizations across various fields ranging from medical, arts and culture, a Rotary Club, and a global engagement platform. A strategist and a tactician he is. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Kavilash Chowla.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you again for inviting me to be here. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm going to start with shifting to, hopefully, the slides should come up any second. Can you? Perfect. So as Dato Chairman said, my purpose here today is really to talk a little bit about sustainability for business growth, right? And again, as Dato started to define, sustainability means how do we look at preservation of planet, of nation, of people, of the environment? How do we look beyond just economic return and look at societal and social return when we think about the operations of business? And that's really what we're going to delve into today. My purpose here today is twofold. On one level, my purpose is to inform you, to give you some information, hopefully some insight that you find interesting, but more importantly, it's to give you some information that hopefully you can take back and will take back to your desks, to your offices, and find actionable. If you all leave today going, okay, that was interesting, it was a good 45 minutes, I learned a bit, thank you, and now I'm going to go back to life as normal, I would have failed. If you leave today with, that was interesting, I feel I left with enough knowledge that I can start to change my behavior. I can start to change the way I think about my role in this organization. I can start to imagine how my role in this organization can better serve my community, can better serve my nation, and can better serve my planet in a way that is consistent with my values, then I would have succeeded. So I'm going to ask you for a big favor. As we go through the day, again, I am a semi-academic, so I teach periodically. So I have a tendency, and some of your fellow colleagues might know this, I have a tendency to call on people when I ask questions. I like to ask things as I'm talking. So if you have questions while I'm speaking, feel free to raise your hand, come up to the microphone, interrupt me and ask. And I, likewise, will probably ask you questions as we're going through the slides. So again, be ready to please volunteer. If you don't, I will have a tendency to call on people, so just be prepared. So I'm going to encourage you to volunteer. So with that, our agenda today is really, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a brief background on me and my organization, And then we're going to talk through, as Dr. Chairman said, the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN in a little more detail. And then how do those translate into how businesses create revenue, create growth, create economic impact, and create social impact as part of a broader ecosystem in how they operate. And then finally, we're going to turn to what's next for Bank Rakyat and how it thinks and operates in its own business. So Baton Global at its core is a very traditional management consulting firm. Right? We're based in Des Moines. We do a lot of work in the Middle East. We do a lot of work here in Southeast Asia, a lot of work in Asia. We're quite prolific in Islamic finance, in ethical finance, and we're starting to grow our business in Europe. In terms of our services, again, very traditional strategy, leadership, research, and innovation. Right? Again, in many ways, pretty dynamic global advisory firm, and I'm just going to leave it there. But at this point, you probably should be asking yourself, that's great, you're relatively well-educated, run a firm, but why should we listen to you when it comes to sustainability? Why does it matter? Right? So it matters for two reasons. First and foremost, I have a lot of experience in sustainability. From an academic perspective, as I said, I'm a pseudo-academic, so I still do a lot of research in academia, or my body of academic research is focused on the area of faith, finance, and impact. So we explicitly look at how do financial services companies generate financial return, generate environmental return, and generate social impact in parallel. We do a lot of that by, in particular, looking at both ethical finance in general, but also diving deeply into Islamic finance, including, to Dr. Chairman's point, starting to reimagine and look at the maqasid al-sharia as the point of departure, not looking at conventional finance as the point of departure. So from an academic perspective, this is a key focus of mine. We have a lot of expertise. But what I would argue what is more important is that in my own personal life, the role of financial institutions and their ability to create social impact and positive impact by their business model has been extremely deep. So again, I was talking with Dr. Chairman a little bit before this. So I was born and raised in Zambia and Zimbabwe in Southern Africa. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Zimbabwe. It's just north of South Africa. But the government there in the late 80s shifted from a presidential system to what was essentially a dictatorial system that led to hyperinflation. Now the Zimbabwean dollar is gone, and they basically use the US dollar. And we were forced to leave when I was 12 years old because the government essentially told us that if you don't go in the next few months, we're taking all your property and you may not be here a few months later. So we moved to the US. In the mid-40s, as India and Pakistan separated, again, our family is originally from Pakistan and India, my mother spent the first 6 years of her life in a refugee camp, right? But then she managed to become a MD and a doctor practicing at the Mayo Clinic in the US. How did this happen? It happened because we were able to mobilize finances from financial institutions that saw people who were hardworking, who had ideas, and that enabled us to create opportunity from crisis. Right? So the role of financial institutions by focusing on social impact have been critical to my own success. Right? And that's what has driven me in my own career to focus on this element. In terms of my financial services background, I spent about 7 years working in investment banking. I worked at the United Nations on international financial policy issues, focusing on development finance. I then worked a lot in the Middle East, South Asia, and Southeast Asia on these issues. And I'm a partner in a private equity firm in the UK that invests in triple bottom line companies, i.e. companies that, through their business model, generate financial, environmental, and social return. So I've got deep expertise, but also deep passion in this space. So now we're going to turn to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. As Dr. Chairman said, there's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the purpose of these goals are quite simple, right? They are to mobilize all of us, individuals, organizations, nonprofits, civil society, the private sector, around solving the most intractable problems we face as a world. And why did they do this? They did this for several reasons. First and foremost, they did this because governments have traditionally operated in this space of sustainability, right? We have looked to our governments to provide infrastructure. We look to our governments to provide welfare, right? In the Islamic world, we look to governments to help mobilize and allocate zakah, right? Or we look to institutions of waqf, or we look to other charities to fill this role. Traditionally, we have looked to government and civil society to address sustainability. However, as the population has grown, right, as Dr. Chairman said, 32 million people now in Malaysia, 7 billion people on this earth. We're going towards 10 billion people on this earth. Yet the earth isn't growing in size, right? It's 50 years since we've been on the moon. There is some talk of trying to colonize the moon, and who knows, Mars may be next. That being said, though, we are running out of space, right? So we have to figure out, how do we continue to work together? Governments and civil society organizations are no longer sufficient to address those issues, right? We think about the Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh, right? We think about natural disasters, the earthquakes that happen, the floods, the tsunami. Governments don't have the funding. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the expertise. The ability of Tesla and Elon Musk or Facebook to reach people far outweighs the ability of a government to do so today. So when the UN created the Sustainable Development Goals, it was a very deliberate attempt to recognize that governments are no longer, alongside civil society, the sole agents through which we create sustainability. Individuals, and more importantly, private organizations, business, can be an extremely powerful, impactful tool to create change. And there needs to be a vehicle through which to align business with sustainability. And these are the SDGs. As we see up here, there's 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 targets that span a wide range of issues, right? Poverty, hunger, good health, education, etc. So when you look at these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, I'm going to, again, we'll welcome volunteers. Which of these 17 do you believe, or more importantly, do you know Bank Rakyat can positively impact here in Malaysia? I'll give you 5 or 10 seconds to reflect, and then welcome somebody to walk up to the mic and start throwing them out or standing up and shouting. If not, I'll start calling on you. But which of these can Bank Rakyat positively affect of these 17 SDGs? I'll start with the front row here. Someone from the front row right here.
Muzammil from Strategy. My personal belief is in the quality education that I think Bank Rakyat can actually contribute a lot, especially through the Yayasan Bank Rakyat. I think from through the scholarships that we provide to the the eligible ones.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Hello, I'm Mahura Zainim from Arhanu Business. I think we should work on the number 14, life below water. As I was listening to our Datuk Chairman talk on sustainability, I was thinking of the 450,000 plastics we have in our vault. You know, all our goals are stored in a plastic package. So we need to think of that, on how to not use plastic anymore.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect. One more. Any other thoughts of which of these 17 SDGs Bank Rakyat can positively affect, either globally or just here in Malaysia? One more. Someone from the middle. Anyone? I see lots of smiling faces. All right, Iqbal, I'll pick on you then back there, wherever you are.
I can't really see from there, but I think one of our programs that we're doing right now is to focus on a hunger issue, where one of our program called Nuri Nutrisi, we provide nutritional food to the underprivileged students, and we go to several schools around Malaysia, and we talk about all the food, the healthy food that we can provide to them.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. So first and foremost, thank you for recognizing those. Thank you for standing up. And thank you for your thoughts and the work where you see Bank Rakyat can make a difference. In a couple of minutes, though, I'm going to say thank you, but I'm also going to challenge you. That's not enough. You are leaving a tremendous amount of value that you can have on the table, right? And we're going to talk through that in a couple of minutes when we get to another slide, right? So when we think about the SDGs and their implications for business, right? The SDGs, as we said, was a way for the United Nations to really think about how do you mobilize the private sector to partner with the public sector and civil society. Part of it really is driven by creating sustainability. But for business, the absence of aligning to the SDGs creates a tremendous amount of risk, right? As we saw in the pictures with the ocean, with all that plastic. Think about aqua farming. Think about shipping. Think about tourism, right? These are big potential critical elements of both national level and global level economies, right? Think about wasting of water. Think about all those diapers that are going to take 500 years to decompose in a landfill. Think about how that starts to erode productive soil, how that starts to potentially destroy agriculture, right? The absence of private sector to mobilize around the SDGs destroys the ability of the private sector to generate capital, to generate profit, to generate growth, to drive a productive economy. So it is in the self-interest of the private sector to mobilize around the SDGs. How you do that can create new market opportunities. It can create improved governance and risk metrics, which reduces your cost of capital. It can create new sources of capital to fuel growth, create new sources of customers for you as a business. So the implications for business in not responding to the SDGs are quite horrific, and the implications for business in positively responding to the SDGs can be extremely powerful, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of transition to, okay, maybe that's nice theoretically, makes sense, right? But what does it mean for financial services in particular? And more importantly then, what does it mean for Bank Rakyat? And given your new mission, vision, and purpose of wanting to be the sustainable bank. Perfect. So what is the purpose of a financial institution in general? If you think about it just in simple economic terms, what's the purpose of a financial institution? Right, as a bank, what do you do? Yep, provide financing, right? Whether it's through capital markets, whether it's through loans, whether it's through, again, if you're on the equity side, an investment. But the purpose is, again, pretty simple, right? There are people who have excess capital, and there are people who need that excess capital for some reason. Your job as a financial institution is quite simple, to bring them together, right? Now, in the process of just simply running that business, there is an opportunity to create tremendous impact. So as we started, part of the driving reason behind the UN's decision to create the SDGs was to crowd in private capital, right? The governments can't fund addressing sustainability challenges. Civil society, philanthropy, donations, zakat, sadaqah is not adequate to meet all the needs out there, right? So they need to figure out a way, how do you crowd in private capital? So when you think about the role of a bank and the SDGs, your role is to figure that out. Your role is to say, okay, we've got all these depositors, right? And we've got all these borrowers. How do we do our job, i.e. take money from depositors, provide it in loans, get our return, in a way that forwards and addresses the SDGs? At its core, that's the role of a financial institution, to close that tremendous funding gap that exists through banks, right? And that's essentially what this slide kind of draws out, is the role of financial institutions in mobilizing, catalyzing that capital. Any questions there? Make sense? Perfect. So when we start to dive deeper, okay, so understood, there's a need for it. But again, as a financial services institution in general, part of your role as a private organization, sometimes as a publicly listed organization, it is to create revenue for your shareholders, right? That's in your charter. If you don't, it's illegal. Part of it as a public institution like Bank Rakyat is to, again, be sustainable from a financial perspective, but again, is also to meet the mission as set by your shareholders, including the Ministry of Entrepreneurship, and to meet your development objectives, right? So there's got to be a market opportunity there, though, for you to be financially sustainable. So when we start to look at the market opportunity that exists, we see there's roughly a $12 trillion funding opportunity there for financial services institutions. That's huge. $12 trillion in demand for money that's linked to sustainability, right? That's a really, really, really big market. As somebody who invests in private equity and is involved in venture capital, when I think about, total accessible market, or TAM, that is amazing, right? You've got if you think about unicorns, right? Companies that are valued at $1 billion, right? Those tech unicorns like Google or Slack recently when they listed, that's an Uber unicorn. That's a super, super unicorn with an addressable market size of $12 trillion for financial services, right? Across energy and materials, right? Across cities and urban mobility. Again, Malaysia's continuing to grow. Just being in Kuala Lumpur, the amount of construction going along is amazing. The investment in additional roads and infrastructure, right? The need in food and the growth and development, right? And as you get emerging middle classes here in Malaysia, but also in the rest of Southeast Asia, the need for health and demand for health and well-being businesses continues to grow. So from a market opportunity perspective, addressing the SDGs can also be very, very lucrative from a business perspective. That being said, though, again, earlier we identified education, we identified water as a couple of opportunities where, again, Bank Rakyat could engage in addressing the SDGs. But those solutions were based from a sense of we can do it through CSR in our foundation, right? We can do it through philanthropy, right? We can do it through charity. What they're seeing here is, yes, you can do it as charity, and that's great. But if we continue to think and dig a little deeper, you can do it in a bigger way and create a tremendous amount of economic value along the way, because there is demand for $12 trillion in funding to address the SDGs. That is a huge, accessible market that a financial institution like Bank Rakyat can start to tap into. So the question then is, how do you start to tap into that? So broadly speaking, we see three primary ways that businesses, in particular financial services institutions, start to tap into this sustainability marketplace, right? In a way that, again, delivers on SDG outcomes while also delivering financial return opportunity. That includes revenue opportunity, valuation opportunities, growth in net income and profitability, et cetera, right? So the first, low operational footprints. The second is innovation in products and services. And then the third is new business models. And we're going to talk through these in a little more detail. So the first is low operational environment footprints. So what does that mean? It means very similar to Dr. Chairman's letter she sent out in June. It means reducing your environmental footprint, right? Starting to eliminate plastic bottles, starting to build green, sustainable energy, alternative energy sources for your buildings, right? Starting to perhaps replace utilizing hydrocarbons for fuel with solar panels or with wind or with energy generated by waves from the ocean, right? So it means starting to change your operational footprint, right? And again, when we look at financial services, we have generally seen them do this through three key areas, right? The first is, again, high energy efficiency buildings, right? So when I think about the Bank Rakyat branch network, right? And for those who work in your operations department or in your real estate department that manage your facilities, is there opportunity to replace some of the energy? Is there opportunity to upgrade some of your energy infrastructure to reduce your carbon footprint? Is there opportunity to replace some of your energy costs, right, by creating and placing solar panels on some of the roofs of your buildings, right? Is there opportunity to harness wind energy as part of your infrastructure, right? Is there opportunity to replace light bulbs, right, that again can start to lower energy costs? So we've seen, again, a lot of financial services institutions start to move their first step into proactively addressing the SDGs by focusing on that high energy efficiency buildings. Number two then is data centers. Financial services, by and large, are extremely data-rich environments, data-heavy organizations. Number one, it's because for compliance reasons, you have to be, right? You have to store data, you have to secure it, you have to manage it, right? And again, for a lot of organizations, they tend to do it on-prem, right? You use servers in your facility that burn a tremendous amount of energy and are tremendously inefficient today. There's the development of cloud infrastructure that utilizes artificial intelligence to help run huge, very efficient server farms, enables an opportunity for data-rich organizations like financial services, again, to start to reduce their carbon footprint, which again has a very positive effect on reducing your energy costs as an organization. So again, you can squeeze out more operating margin by reducing your costs by switching to the cloud. By switching to some of those shared services, you can create significant financial impact while at the same time addressing the SDGs. And again, we've seen financial services, healthcare, and other industries that, again, are heavy data industries start to move and be first adopters in terms of, again, SDG outcomes, but also financial outcomes by addressing their data center, data storage needs. The third then is shifting to vendor management, right? Where you start to privilege vendors that themselves align to your values as an organization, right? That start to align themselves to the SDGs, right? And again, for a lot of large organizations that have a tremendous amount of basically buyer power, you can positively use your strength and size to influence others, right? If you have vendors that provide your tables, right? Vendors that clean your facilities, you can ask, do you use biodegradable cleaning solutions? If not, you have to, by X date, or Bank Rakyat's going to find a replacement, right? If your contract is large enough for them, they will shift, right? Just as when one of your shareholders says, I need you to do X, because they're a powerful shareholder, you move. You have that power too as an organization. So in your procurement department, you can start to think about, again, very tactically, where are we spending a lot of money, perhaps with some smaller or questionable vendors, where we can utilize our buying power to create a shift in their behavior and their attitude, right? But again, that requires you to be very intentional in thinking about your basic day-to-day business function and how do you translate that from being a good steward of the bank's money and spending, but also a good steward of your community, your nation, and the planet, right? There's an intentionality there around connecting it to your individual role. And again, that's what we're seeing with a lot of financial institutions and where they tend to start their transition up that value chain. The second then is we start to see some innovation in the way they do business. And this is where you generally start to see the big impact. Right? A lot of research has shown of the additional economic impact created by transitions to SDGs and being more sustainable, about 45% of that economic impact comes from operational efficiency and cost-related reduction. 55% of that impact comes from the revenue generation side, right? So being creative in how you think about how your organization does business, how it makes its money, is going to be more impactful to the overall financial performance of the organization and the sustainability outcome. So here we've got some examples of how organizations in the financial services space have innovated their products and services in line with the SDGs. So again, we've talked about poverty, right? Poverty is a huge issue, certainly in South Asia, somewhat in Southeast Asia, and in other parts of the world. So Yes Bank, again, it's an Indian-based bank that started to target the unbanked and underbanked, right? And they said, okay, how do we do that in a way that, again, generates revenue, but also in a way, again, addresses poverty very systematically, right? And there they said, okay, what are we good at, right? We're very good at understanding technology, and we're very, very good at being frugal, right? We're cost efficient. You know, when we look at our operating margins and we look compared to our peers, they tend to be higher because the percentage of revenue that we spend on our costs tends to be much, much lower, right? We run a very, very tight ship, right? So they translated those advantages as an organization into a business model that then drove how they served and developed products and services for the unbanked and the underbanked in a way that, again, generated positive financial outcome for them, but at the same time, aligned themselves very deliberately to SDG 1, started to reduce poverty. Aviva was another, right? Again, they're a life insurance. They're businesses, we got to develop product, we've got to make money, right? We're growing. Again, in India, you've got 1.1, 1.2 billion people, so to speak, right? Of that 1.2 billion, 820 million, that's a huge market size. 820 million technically are below the poverty line from international standards, right? So how do you start to provide and crowd in that consumer market with insurance product, right? What does that do? Number one, insurance product provides resilience to that community, right? Because again, they don't have the financial depth to withstand some sort of economic anomaly. A child gets sick. You have to go buy additional medicine. All of a sudden, you're in an economic dire straits when you're very, very thin in terms of your economic resilience, right? So the ability to develop insurance, targeting that customer base can be both extremely impactful from an SDG perspective, from eliminating poverty perspective, but also extremely impactful when you've got 820 million potential consumers from a business end, right? So that's where Aviva recognized there's a tremendous opportunity to start developing insurance product for this market. 820 million consumers that I can sell market to. Again, you can get low margin across that scale and still make a tremendous amount of revenue as an organization, right? But again, that was a deliberateness in thinking about products and services, A, aligned to an SDG, but B, that generated revenue for the organization based on their expertise as a business, right? So again, what I'm kind of driving at here is there's a lot of intentionality in all of this work. Credit Suisse, again, built a microfinance fund. Credit Suisse, investment bank, asset manager, a lot of assets under management. Same thing. They said, okay, microfinance is growing. We've got a tremendous amount of productive capital that we need to deploy. How do we deploy it in a way that A, continues to generate outsized market returns for investors, but B, continues to make a difference in the world, right? So they said, okay, we honed down to SDG number 8, decent work and economic growth. We mobilize $2 billion and start to allocate it, right? So when I think about the role of Bank Rakyat in particular, right, with one of your major shareholders or stakeholders being the Ministry of Entrepreneur Development, right? SDG 8 seems tremendously aligned to your mission, to your purpose, and to your governmental charter as an institution, right? So I would, certainly think Credit Suisse and again, Sekar Bank in Turkey, again, provide some really good opportunity to think about product innovation, right? There are SDGs you can move the needle on here in Malaysia very, very easily through your charter. It's right in your wheelhouse. You've got the expertise, you've got the capital, but it is and does require being creative and deliberate in thinking about how do we evolve our product and how do we evolve our services that we use, right? All right, maybe this time it'll work. Perfect. And then here are two others that, again, I think align really, really well to Bank Rakyat's business as an organization, right? Industry innovation and infrastructure and reducing inequalities, right? Again, Swedfund, the Swedish Development Financial Institution, a DFI, very, very similar to Bank Rakyat, right? And so again, they started partnering with organizations to create businesses that created impact, right? Again, that required a few things. Number one, access to capital. Number two, access to capacity building. Again, Bank Rakyat at the moment is a bank, right? But could you theoretically start to develop SME centers, right? Where you have a large concentration of potential consumers, you say, okay, in addition to providing you funding, and perhaps on the condition of providing an SME funding, we're going to require you go through a capacity building exercise, right? To ensure you are accounting and keeping your books properly, to ensure you're getting the right business skills from a financial perspective. Or we're creating a shared services center where, again, if you are a B2C sort of business, you're going to go through and we're going to offer you a marketing course to improve the likelihood you're going to grow your revenue, right? So again, as a bank, what you're doing is you are creating higher quality borrowers and reducing your risk of non-performing loans by increasing the business acumen of your customers, increasing their ability to generate revenue, and thereby, again, reducing their risk of defaulting on loans, number one, but also increasing the opportunity for them to grow their business, which then means the amount of financing they're going to need down the road is also going to grow, right? So we're starting to support your customers in their development, thereby growing your customer base and increasing your wallet share with that consumer. But again, it requires a deliberateness. And that's what Swedfund was very deliberate in doing, right? And then in the Amazon region, we saw where, again, due to a lack of awareness, a lack of access, we had a couple of financial institutions go out into more rural parts of their community or more isolated parts of their communities and deliberately push financial services where, again, with the advent of technology solutions, you can start to create through mobile payments or even through cryptocurrencies and tokenization, a way to create very secure elements of financial transactions. But again, this all comes from being innovative and forcing yourself every time you sit down to do work to say, okay, how can I evolve my business practices to A, be beneficial to my institution, and B, serve my community, C, serve my country, and D, serve my planet. It's all about intentionality. Rabobank, I'm sure you're very familiar with. It's one of the leading cooperative banks in the world. And again, Pires Bank, another financial institution, again, did some pretty innovative work. And again, we'll be happy to leave a copy of this presentation so it can be circulated if you want. And we're starting to run up against time, so I'm not going to walk through these two examples. But again, what you will see is you're starting to see innovation in product and services. And again, I when I look at Bank Rakyat, when I look at your business, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for this institution to start to evolve its products and services quite deliberately, especially given your shareholders, your stakeholders, and your mandate, to create tremendous impact on the SDGs, both globally, but in particular in Malaysia and its impact on improving the SDGs. So the final step in that transition, again, the first step was really focusing on your operations. Second was really kind of innovating in your product and services. And then the third, which again is my passion and where I love to see organizations go, and where again as a private equity investor we invest, is in organizations that evolve their business model, right? And here's a great example, which again is a competitor of ours, but there's plenty of opportunity in the sea, and that's Leapfrog Investments. Again, they're a private equity firm based in New York, right? And their whole idea, again, is profit with purpose. What does that mean? That means that when they look at a portfolio of businesses, they say, A, you have to meet certain financial metrics or certain financial outcomes to get an investment from us. But that's not enough. You also need to meet certain social impact outcomes aligned to the SDGs. If you just meet the financing, you're not getting an investment from us. It's that simple, right? Their business model is predicated upon investing in businesses that create positive social impact. And again, when you think about the opportunities that exist in markets like Malaysia, right, where you have lower per capita income, think about the opportunities that exist in a market like China, or India, or Indonesia, or Vietnam, or Thailand, right? There are tremendous opportunities, but again, it requires that evolution of the business model. Beyond just thinking, I do good with philanthropic money, and beyond just thinking, I make money with my commercial money, and then I give it away. Say, no, 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 no. There is a pie, and you can have your pie and eat it too, right? But again, it requires a change in mindset. When we look at the history of kind of conventional economics, neoclassical economics, right? There's this concept of the zero-sum game, right? For everything I lose, you gain and vice versa, right? That has been challenged through the evolution of technology. It's been challenged by the millennial and Gen Z. When we look at the scholarship in Islamic economics, there is somewhat of a similar mindset, but it comes from a different place. Right? Generally, people have thought, I have capital that generates economic return, right? And so I do business with that. And then once I've made my money, I can set up a waqf, or I have to do zakat, or sadaqah, and I can do charity. But I make my money here, and then I give it away here. But the two are separate, right? I have a money-making mindset, and then I have a giving mindset. But the two are separate. That has started to change, right? And how has that started to change? By Sharia scholars going back to the Maqasid al-Sharia. Dubai Islamic Bank is one of the oldest Islamic banks in the world. Again, or at least modern Islamic banks in the world, right? Dating back to the 1970s, right? And their current Sharia scholar, Sheikh Al-Huri, has really challenged by, again, going back to the Maqasid al-Sharia and said, no, this dichotomous worldview of you make money here doing whatever you want as long as it's not haram, it doesn't need to be positive, it just needs to not be haram, and then you give it away here, doesn't make it okay, right? That's a false way to think about the world, and it's the false way to interpret the Maqasid al-Sharia when it comes to your financial stewardship, right? We are trustees, which means everything we are given, we have to create positive outcome from. So how you make money can't just be, I make money by doing no harm. It's got to be, I make money by doing good, right? And Dubai Islamic Bank is starting to shift their own thinking in how they do that. And that's driving a new business model, right? So again, Leapfrog has done that in private equity, and that's where we're seeing a lot of this emerging. And there's a great piece of research by Wharton specifically on private equity exits that state private equity that's been investing in businesses like Leapfrog does, and that we do at Impact Investment Partners, where again, you generate social and financial return in parallel, are just as attractive as traditional private equity that doesn't, right? So there is no loss to being good. And over time, as we see with some additional businesses, there is actually greater economic opportunity because you're starting to create new consumers, right? When you think about sustainable cities and communities, you are growing the opportunity for new customers to buy your goods, right? When you think about the elimination of poverty, you're again creating more consumers to buy goods and services. When people are healthier, happier, you are creating opportunity for them to enjoy more goods and services, right? So again, addressing the SDGs can lead to direct economic benefit for an organization and create additional future consumers that again drives revenue and drives profitability. But again, it requires a deliberateness of examining your business model, examining your operations and your products and services as a business. Another tremendous example is BlackRock. Again, $6.2 trillion in assets under management, the world's largest asset manager. Again, so a few years ago, BlackRock said, look, our job is quite simple. It is to manage other people's money, to invest it. But if people want to make a difference in the world, we're going to enable that through their financial life. Bank Rakyat can do the same thing. You can say, okay, we have an obligation to serve our country, to support economic development. We can do that by still developing, building, utilizing really productive financial product, but we're going to do it because it's asked of us. Quite simple, right? And again, BlackRock has made a tremendous impact on the asset management industry. And in particular, when you look at their funds, they have focused on, focused on these 4 SDGs very, very deliberately in how they're managing and allocating that $6.2 trillion of wealth. Again, that's a big, big lever they have to positively impact the SDGs. Another great model that, again, I think speaks to some degree quite directly to potential opportunity for Bank Rakyat is Grameen Bank. Again, microfinance bank based in Bangladesh, right? And again, how they evolved as being the bank for the poor is they recognized, again, one of the elements against which financial institutions decide to lend is credit, right? If you're poor, you don't have credit, you don't have collateral, so what do you have, right? I've got nothing against which you can evaluate my worthiness as a borrower, right? The innovation that came from Grameen Bank was understanding relationships, right? And this is especially strong in Muslim-majority countries, where again, there is a bond in communities. It said, okay, I as a borrower, you as a borrower, we may have no credit, but you as a member of a community of 15 women have social collateral. Your standing in that community matters to them, and your reputation matters to you, and how your peers view you. That matters in that community. That became credit, right? So by utilizing social capital as a mechanism to evaluate credit, Grameen Bank developed financial product off of that. Now again, they are not Sharia compliant, so they do conventional structured loans. But again, the impact they have had has been tremendous, and their repayment rate is 99%, even though they're affecting 93% of villages in Bangladesh. Again, very deliberate evolution of financial services and a business model that went away from traditional credit to social credit. And again, when I think about Malaysia, right, and when I think about the B40 and the ability to tap into them, to positively affect them, again, tremendous amount of social capital, number one. Number two, most of them now have a cell phone of some sort, right? They have connectivity. That creates a tremendous footprint of tracking people, creates a tremendous pool of data. You can understand people's purchasing, buying, other sorts of habits through that data. That gives you an ability to use psychometric scoring to evaluate their potential credit risk, right? So you can develop and innovate new product, again, using technology to deliver money, using tokenization and cryptocurrency to deliver money, using blockchain and DLT as a secure mechanism to protect it, and to reach the B40 in rural communities in a cheap, efficient manner to create financial inclusion by using psychometric data to understand and create basically their risk score, and then create financial product for them. right? So there are opportunities to really develop some innovative business models in a market like Malaysia. And again, these are the 4 SDGs that Grameen Bank really focused on. And then finally, we're going to just spend a couple of minutes here on Rabobank. And again, they're a cooperative bank very similar to Bank Rakyat, operate in 39 countries, and have provided over $103 billion in loans for food and agriculture. And they currently have $750 billion in assets. Right? If I recall, Bank Rakyat is roughly 26 billion in assets, give or take. Right? So there's quite a bit of room for you to grow to be as big as Rabobank. That being said, though, there is no reason that Bank Rakyat can't get there. And again, when you look at Rabobank's evolution, right, it wasn't that they went out and said, I just want to be a cooperative bank. No. They said, I want to be the best cooperative bank for sustainability in food and agriculture. There was a very deliberate mission, very deliberate vision, not about financial performance or financial or economic sustainability. That was necessary, right? You can't run a business if you're not making money. That's quite simple, right? So that's necessary, that's table stakes. There was a very deliberate decision to want to make a difference in the world, to serve a community. And that has enabled them to become the world's most successful cooperative bank with $750 billion in assets operating globally, right? They're just as successful as other for-profit banks that have no connection or desire to create sustainable outcomes and align themselves to sustainability. And they are becoming more successful because more and more consumers have recognized, the point that there is a challenge and a tremendous amount of strain on the world because we're not adhering to the SDGs. And so consumers are, again, deliberately making choices to engage in organizations that align themselves to the SDGs, which then means Rabobank continues to become more and more successful as companies that have not adapted their business model start to wither away because consumers say, look, if I can have no, what's the word I'm looking for? No sacrifice of return or experience or service by doing good, of course I'm going to do good. And if I can even do better by doing good, that's even better, right? And that's what we're starting to see in financial services, is that consumers want it and financial performance of organizations that have triple bottom line focuses tend to do better over time than organizations that don't. Right, so that's a really compelling value proposition for an organization like Bank Rakyat that has a mission and vision like yours, that has stakeholders like yours, and most importantly, that is operating in a country like Malaysia with the opportunity for SMEs to grow and develop, right? Because those are the engines of future economic growth here in Malaysia. And if you can create and develop a business model and products that fund SMEs and then grows your wallet share with them as the market share grows, that's a tremendously valuable financial proposition for an organization. And again, when you look at the demographics of Malaysia, that's certainly possible. And again, these are the SDGs that Rabobank has aligned itself for. So then, what's next for Bank Rakyat, right? So first and foremost, we've got to think about, as an organization then, how are we tracking success? Generally, financial institutions, as they should, have a really rigorous financial scorecard, right? What are my non-performing loans? What are my cost of funds, right? What are my assets? What's my return on equity? Those are all necessary, right? But then we need to develop an equally robust system and framework of metrics for social impact outcomes and the SDGs that we want to target. And then we need to connect those SDG metrics to our financial performance metrics. And that allows us as an organization to understand how do we continue to grow profitably in a way that is creating positive social impact aligned to the SDGs, right? And then we need to start to, once we start to build out that metric framework, we also then need to start to build out and understand what is the business case for particular product innovations, right? Run that rigorous analysis. Again, here you are running a business. You're running services. You have to create profit to be sustainable. But that, again, that's not enough. And then again, there are plenty of peers out there, conduct gap analysis. What additional skills or resources you need in your organization to create the change, to innovate those models in products, et cetera. And then finally, and most importantly then, you gotta build stakeholder buy-in, right? So you need frameworks to track performance, you need to develop the business case, you need to have good analysis, but then you gotta bring people together to then run an efficient organization that evolves and creates change. And one of the ways we do this is by really thinking about going through what's called an impact cascade, right? And this, again, is a very simple thing you can do at your desks, in your own office, or as an organization or business unit, is really think about, okay, what are our SDG priorities, right? Again, some of you have already articulated some of those priorities. So I'm gonna challenge you to think about what are your SDG priorities when you think about your role in the institution. Again, if my role in the bank is really to provide commercial loans to small to medium enterprises. Okay, great. I understand that's what I do. But how do I do that in a way that aligns to the SDGs? So again, study the SDGs. Identify how that intersects with my role in the bank and with my business, and then think about how do I want to measure impact, right? Does that mean, yes, I want to grow my loan portfolio, I want to reduce non-performing loans, but I also want to grow wallet share with my customers. Okay, great. What's preventing wallet share growth with my customers, right? I then need to do some understanding and research, start to develop outcomes and that success metrics, and you just kind of go down this cascade, and you can start to evolve your own thinking and evolve your business, right? Again, to align the SDGs to your business. So again, the key takeaways that, again, as I kind of started, I said, you know, my goal was to inform you, but again, if you leave just informed today, that's my failure, right? What I really want is for you to leave today with, okay, I feel informed and I feel empowered, but also informed enough to start to think and change my behavior, right? To go back to my desk tomorrow or later today to start to innovate my business to create social impact, right? So first and foremost, start to think about building your business to create impact, right? Align purpose with your core business activities, right? Change your attitude. Banks are a force for good. Again, you have a tremendously powerful lever here in 25 billion, 26 billion in assets, and a tremendous stakeholder base with the Ministry of Entrepreneurship Development, a very strong leadership team that has given you a tremendous vision and mission. So again, this bank is your tool to serve your community, to serve your country, and to serve the planet. Recognize it, accept it, and take some responsibility with that. It can be extremely powerful. And then, yeah, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? Hold yourself accountable. Build out some metrics, even for yourself personally, right? Again, if your role is procurement and your job is to hire the firm that cleans the facilities, say, okay, I'm going to build my own little metric scorecard, right? Am I consistently moving to providers that use sustainable practices in their business? Am I moving to providers who pay the people who work for them a living wage, right? Who don't allow them exposure to harmful chemicals, right? And I'm going to hold myself accountable to that by asking them, please provide me a list of the products you use in their chemicals, right? But you can do that at an individual level, and you can do it at an organizational level. And then finally, and equally as important, innovate. Force yourself to think beyond the bounds. Again, you've been given a tremendous opportunity in this organization, at least I think, again, with some really great leadership, to think, to be bold. So do it, right? That's a great, great, great opportunity. So, you know, really challenge the status quo. And I have a feeling if you do, you will find a tremendous amount of receptivity in your management team and certainly in your chairman. And with that, I will go to questions. All right, I guess while you're thinking of questions, I'll ask you guys a question. Do you feel any more able today to go back to your work later this week and start to innovate in how you run your individual role, or if you have a span of control, how you manage your span of control in the bank to align to the SDGs. If you do, raise your hand. If you don't, I guess we'll know because your hand wasn't raised. But yeah, at least a few of you do. I was hoping there'd be a little more impact, but all right. For those who don't feel like they have had enough information, right, to be able to take this back and start to do something in their job, ask me some questions so I can hopefully answer those so you can go back and do a little more when you get back to your desks or your span of control. And there were a lot of you out there. Like the first two rows, I feel kind of raised hands, but beyond that, there's a lot of opportunity to answer questions.
Assalamualaikum. I'm Fazlin from Account and Taxation. I have one question. Based on our previous talk, we focus and encourage people to reduce or stop using non-biodegradable products. So is there any, my question is there any initiative on focusing or encourage supplier to reduce or strictly stop producing and generating that waste product? Because we believe that we focus on economic concept where if there's no demand, so there will no supply. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, right? And so, again, I'm not aware of any particular initiatives here in the bank per se, but you could, right? Again, you could very easily say, okay, we're going to give preferential treatment to suppliers who only use biodegradable products or who don't, create XYZ level of economic or negative environmental impact. And again, a lot of organizations will have for suppliers almost a vendor sheet where they're scoring them, right? So you score them on quality of product, you score them on transparency, you score them on kind of some fiduciary elements and financial elements, timeliness, et cetera. So yeah, you can integrate, again, going back to the SDGs, elements of the Sustainable Development Goals into your framework and evaluation criteria for your suppliers. Again, do they pay people a living wage? Yes or no, right? And you can say, okay, how am I going to verify that? If they're local, you might do some spot visits, right? If they're not local and it's not easy to get you, you can ask for, okay, I would like to see a list of your salaries, right? So again, part of that, again, yeah, depends on your buyer power. Again, my gut tells me you have quite a bit of potential buyer power, so you can start to force your suppliers. Number two, though, again, when I think about your shareholder base, you have pretty good access to the Ministry of Finance, to Bank Negara, to the Ministry of Entrepreneurship. So from there, you've got some pretty good access to some pretty powerful stakeholders that, again, you can start to challenge your stakeholders to say, hey, we want to be aligned to the SDGs and support, our country and our community. We need your help to start to push forward some policies, right? Where even you can then start to drive regulatory change. So there are I think that's a great idea.
The plastic bottle. Do we have any initiative, say, like you as the consultant, who can get any engagement with this huge community that supply the plastic bottle to us, Malaysian? Is there any activities or any engagement with that? So that that is the question, yeah? Because if there is a supply, there is a demand. That's why we are asking just now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, as long as there's demand, there will be a supply, right? Supply usually rises to meet demand. So again, to some degree, that's where there's a sense of, again, going back to where we started, is there needs to be a change in attitude and behavior, right? So again, if your behavior is, I don't like plastic bottles, that being said, though, the inconvenience of having to, again, using the example of the hotel room that Dr. Chairman talked about, the inconvenience of going out to the bubbler machine in the hallway to fill up my own glass bottle is too inconvenient for me, and I'm unwilling to change my behavior, then yeah, the supply side is not going to change as long as there's demand. And here in Malaysia, as far as I'm aware, there isn't necessarily an initiative, but certainly, for instance, in the US, across college campuses, students mobilized and said, we will no longer buy bottles, right? They stopped buying plastic bottles. That started to change, again, supplier behavior, where they reduced the size of the bottle caps from being this big to being this big. They started to reduce the thickness of the plastic, right? And again, I tend to stay at Marriott properties. Again, because of consumer behavior, they have changed providing, again, plastic bottles in your hotel room. They provide you glass bottles with a bubbler so you can go. And again, if you take the glass bottle, you take it then. That's fine, right? So again, consumer behavior tends to drive change. Again, demand generally will respond, but, and that's where, again, you have, as a buyer, you potentially have your demand, right? So you potentially have a lot of buyer power in this market to influence other behavior that you want to see in your suppliers. Any other questions? And again, I think we've got about 5 minutes left. I think we wrap up at 4:30, if I recall. But
Testing, yeah. You can hear me. Now, first of all, Kavi, thanks for the great insights, what's happening around the world on these SDG initiatives.
Yep.
But the example that you gave, quite a number of organizations mostly focus around 4 kind of SDGs,
yep.
right? I think we in the bank, we're trying probably to look at 10, maybe we end up at 6 or 7. Is that too many for us, or is it better to focus, 2, 3 and make it a real impact? What's your view on this?
Yeah, I mean, so my own view is that it's better, again, if you could, ideally, we could all do all 17, that's tremendous, right? That being said, though, I am just in general, regardless, a big proponent of doing one thing really, really well and then starting to scale it up across an organization, right? So again, when I think about the SDGs, and again, I don't know if it's possible to go back to the slides quickly, and I'll go back to the slide that's got all 17 up there. Perfect, thanks, Iqbal, perfect. So again, when I look at the SDGs, right, quality education, no poverty, good jobs and economic growth, perhaps innovation and infrastructure, perhaps sustainable cities and communities. When I think about your core business as a bank, first and foremost, I would look to align what we do as an organization to the SDGs. That's going to allow you to create the biggest potential impact, right? So again, if I think about life below water, right, I think that's great. But again, if as a financial institution, you have no funding related to anything that's got to do with water, right? If your only interaction with water is as an individual when you go swimming at the beach, when you go fishing, right? When you take a boat, when you go to the swimming pool, your ability as an organization to shift the needle on that SDG is far more limited because your institution with $26 billion in assets isn't really interacting in that space, right? So again, that's where I'd really start to look at, as a core business, which are the SDGs that are directly potentially affected by your core business activities. That will allow you to start to move the needle with the greatest immediate impact on those SDGs. Over time, yes, you can hopefully expand across all of them, like peace and justice, right? Again, I don't know how much work you do in peace and justice activities. Again, as a financial institution, my guess is there aren't a lot of organizations coming to you for funding related to peace and justice activities. But perhaps gender equality, right? Women entrepreneurs, right? Or women-owned businesses, right? Or businesses that have women as member of their leadership team, right? You say, okay, great. They start to get some preferential terms when either it comes to, the lending activities, or they get some additional benefits in terms of a relationship with the bank, right? You can then start to create and move the needle on that through your core business activities. So again, I mean, I think there are probably 6 or 7 here that potentially align really well. But again, using that kind of impact cascade, I would go through a very deliberate process of evaluating where do we get the biggest social impact ROI for each unit of bank value that we contribute. Any other questions? Yep. Just feel free to stand up and go up to a microphone and.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
I'm Norma from Legal Department. Okay, in addition to Datuk Rosman's question just now, and looking at your slides and those examples that you have given to us, I think I can conclude that most of it are international organizations and banks. Okay, I just would like to know, how do you want to bring us towards the SDG goals when we towards our local people, our culture and our religion, and at the same time we need to comply with our regulatory requirements, especially Bank Negara. And in fact, I think some of our programs like agent banking, we did fit already to the one of the SDG goals. And we also serve to the underserved people. So I just want to know how you want to refine that in terms of SDG goals. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for your question. So first and foremost, I'm going to say, how do you want to refine it, right? You know this organization much better than I do, and you have a lot more agency in Bank Rakyat than I do to create change in it, right? So again, I would flip that question around to you, number one. Number two, I completely appreciate the fact that, again, financial services, highly regulated, and Bank Negara is your regulator, right? But Bank Negara is coming out with VBI, right? They're developing values-based. Is it values-based, the values-based initiative? Value-based intermediary, right? Again, and from what I've read of that, there's some pretty strong alignment between the VBI and the metrics and scorecards and frameworks they're developing to hold their, again, the organizations they regulate accountable to the SDGs, right? So again, there is perfectly opportunity to be aligned to the SDGs and be 100% compliant with your regulator, as again, I think your regulator generally believes in the SDGs and is a big proponent of it. So again, as I look at the financial regulatory landscape here in Malaysia, it is evolving to be better aligned to the SDGs. Now again, then as a business in general though, there usually is not a conflict between, again, regulators like Bank Negara and bank activities and their ability to support SDGs. Right, again, Bank Negara doesn't say you have to lend to XYZ organization. You know, they might say, okay, here are your capital adequacy ratios. Here are, you know, again, you've got to pass a certain level of, you know, soundness and some fiduciary tests, et cetera. So again, it's very easy to still be perfectly compliant with your regulatory obligations, but again, potentially change your mix of business, right? For you as an institution to say, okay, we are going to deliberately target reducing consumer retail loans and increase our loan portfolio to SMEs, right? Or perhaps we're also going to we're going to provide for white goods or durable goods, right? We're going to loan to SMEs, and then for their customers who want to buy on a buy product that may be a higher ticket item, right? Provide a discount for their customers to come in as retail members of Bank Rakyat and take out funding to purchase products from some of our business or commercial customers, right? SME customers, right? That could be still perfectly aligned with your regulations and the compliance framework, but also then could promote no poverty, could promote perhaps gender equality, certainly good jobs and economic growth. So again, it does require some innovation. It does require some deliberateness in thinking through the business, thinking through what you do. But again, there are plenty of opportunities and examples to do that. But again, the onus is on you as A, an organization, but B, as individuals in the organization.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Yeah, I'm going to put some comment and realignment of the whole scenario of SDG. Actually, it is not a choice. Moving forward today, sooner or later, all the organization in Malaysia has to comply because this is Bible. It's not a choice for us. Okay, but if you look at the Bank Rakyat overall, actually we are already in doing whatever the SDG is doing. For example, okay, we have 1 million shareholders, of which 800,000 of them are individuals. Okay, and every year for the last 10 years, the dividend that we are declaring, nothing less than 15%, that go back to all these individuals. If you time 800,000 by 5 people in one household, it's almost close to 4 million people that benefited from this result of the hard work, the process of 5,000 people that work in this organization to achieve this kind of goal. That is one of the achievements along with this. And this 5,000 plus of hardworking ladies and gentlemen that have put your commitment, our commitment to this organization, and you have 5 households in your company. That means 5 times 5, 25,000 that benefited from this process, that you earn salary, bonus and whatnot, that bring the well-being and the good of the people as a team members. To indirectly, don't forget about the zakat that we have declaring, nothing less than 25 million a year. Don't forget about the yayasan that benefiting from those profit that goes to scholarship and whatnot. And a lot more benefit that without we realizing, because at the same time, we also bought the products from the suppliers that generating the business and the well-being of the people. So you see the multiplier effect of all this process that we are doing effectively, efficiently, that have gone down the line, you know. And the scholarship that we are given through Yayasan Rakyat in terms of the poor. Recently, I remember I saw one student that got 10 A's from the father is lorry driver, and he got offered in UM, but they do not have the money to go. So I just put that to Norshikit. Immediately, our Yayasan Rakyat already there, given immediately 1,500 for pre-mobilization. Another one. So all this impact, there's a lot without us realizing it. So our objective now, putting all this SDG, BBI, realign all these things through that process, you know, create more awareness, putting more effort, sincerity, honesty, and have the impact across the organization and nation. Because all these things we don't declare. You know, until our chairman came in, that, you know, she's become very passionate about all these things, you know. So I think it's good if we can put all the 5,000 plus people to be aware and realign to this. We can put all 1 million shareholders to be aligned and aware of all this. The impact, then I think Bank Rakyat will become number 1 in compliance with SDG, BBI, whatever. So it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. So the only thing, sometimes, all of us here, kita tak apa ni, mengarut lah, SDG lah, kumpul orang kat sini semua, you should be working, you know. Now I'm talking the other side, the voice. Apa ni buang masa ni? Kita biar ayat lagi pun, datanglah buah hari, cakap apa semua. You know, yang director ni, bukan dapat allowance apa pun, satu hari spend, semalam habis. Kan? At least you dapat gaji. Duduk sini tak dapat kerja pun dapat gaji jalan. But we show the commitment because we understand. So please understand this because there is no choice. Macam kita cakap vertical kita, digital technology. It's about sustainability. It's no choice. That is what talking about survival of bank rakyat. Will us be here tomorrow if we don't start to change and move to this platform technology, guna gadget, all this kind of thing? With Alipay, you know not today, Bank Negara has approved 40 wallets company and they are operating. They already started. And I met 3 young gentlemen, daripada start, budak-budak daripada start, dia kata, we are going to be the next digital bank. Arab Bank been talking to these people. They're trying to get me to become the director. I said, no. Yeah, I know. So the moment dia dapat wallet, dia buat payment, tomorrow dia buat satu innovation saja. Dia bagi personal financing loan simple. Seorang 1,000 je. Just to bridge, example lah. Just to bridge people. Sementara nak dapat gaji orang ni apa semua, I bridge you 500 to 1,000, no question asked. 10 hari dapat gaji, bayar balik. Bayar RM5. Tapi you tengok RM5 10 hari. 10%, brother. So this kind of little innovation, if they do, habis. Kita pernah. So contoh. So this is sustainability, this is survival. Saya bukan nak bagi ceramah tadi. Saya just to share. So saya tengok semua mandom saja. Semua tak bermaya. Berapa ribu orang ni. Sedangkan kita produce 2 billion profit. We have 107 billion. We are as big as RSP Group. Apa kurangnya buat kita chairman, all our senior, EC senior ni semua hebat-hebat ni. Ni Chief Treasury. Semua hebat. So at least just realign, rethinking, refocus, and I know that bank rakyat will be up there where we want to be. So believe in the BR25, we stay focused, all vertical, whatever we start thinking, now kita aware. So you all know that end of this year, make sure kita corporate will be fit for business. That is the beginning. We gain all credibility and we move the market. And this is the future banking. Orang dah tak pi dah branch apa semua ni. You tengok budak muda sekarang ni. Tak pi dah branch semua ni. Kan? So we have to change. So please, believe in ourselves. Believe in us, our chairman, our board director. Believe in our senior management. Believe in ourselves. We can do it together. And so we change this culture. And so cakap market tak apa, tak ada salah or wrong. Cakap bagi idea. Saya rasa macam ni. Saya tak apa, there's no right or wrong. It's an idea. Okay? Saya bukan nak pergi lecture. Minta maaf kalau salah silap. Just to share. Thank you.
I think that was the perfect conclusion. So, terima kasih. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back over to you or the chairman. Thank you again.
Excuse me, Mr. Kavilash.
Oh, yep.
I have a last note.
Yep, sorry.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, I'm Shamsida from Corporate Service. Okay, I would like to recap, interestingly, what Datuk Chairman's experiences in Taiwan. When you have to queue up for, filling up your tumbler. Okay, I believe currently in Bank Rakyat, I think most of us know that we are working on a very tight budget. Okay, and it's time to ask what we can do for the bank, not what the bank can do for us. Okay, in that manner, in my opinion, there are 2 takeaways, keyword that make sense to start off improving our attitude towards supporting sustainability initiatives and inculcating the culture of it. I have 2 keywords. One
is BYO. Bring your own. Bring your own mug, bring your own tumbler, bring your own lunch box. Okay, the list can go on. And then self-empowerment, self-empowered ourselves towards managing our own garbage, cleanliness, and also the list can go on. So probably the other alternatives that we can think of when we go to meetings is bring our own tumblers or flask, and you can actually cleanse it after you use and bring it home. Manage your own garbage as well. Thank you.
We have come to the end of the talk for today. Before we end today's session, we would like to invite our distinguished guests to savor the high tea serving at Anjong Kembar, while we invite ladies and gentlemen to the foyer for light refreshments. Have a pleasant day. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wa assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.